देखो एक प्रॉब्लम आप लोग को, this problem you'll face in almost every module, with economy not being an exception, and that problem is, sir, I read everything but I remember nothing. Sir, पढ़ते सब है लेकिन याद कुछ नहीं रहता है. And why does that happen is because, number one, you don't revise anything frequently. Whatever you're reading today, you will revise it after 1.5 months. That does not make any sense because then it becomes fresh as new. Okay? So, yes, scientifically proven method है to remember anything, and this is something that even I apply. Okay, this is something that even I apply to remember almost anything. To remember anything, you need to study that 4 times. 1 immediately afterwards, 1 day after, 1 week after, and 1 month after. Okay, so what that means is, good evening Samrin, good evening Adarsh. So what that means is, एक revision, the first revision you should have had done yesterday after the class. अगर वो किया है तो ठीक है, अगर नहीं किया है, please start doing that from today. Okay, please start doing that from today. One revision has to happen almost immediately. So after going from the class, I do expect you guys to just revise the notes. I'm not expecting you to do anything else, at least as of now. And then 5 minutes का revision होगा. आज का थोड़ा चलो 5 मिनट से ज़्यादा खिंच जाएगा, not a problem. Just the second class will pick up the pace in the coming classes. That's not a problem. But ये one revision will do after this. And बाकी के 2 revision I'm expecting कि भैया weekly and monthly कर लेना. ठीक है? Weekly I think आप लोग का Mondays off होगा. So please Mondays को whatever we have done in the complete week, please revise that. Fair enough? Let's start with a quick revision. Please open the first page. I think, I hope guys volume and everything is fine. पीछे volume and everything, हाँ क्या वो पीछे की volume थोड़ा increase करना. None? Check. Online everything is fine guys? Sound and video everything? All right guys, thank you. आपका नाम क्या है? Mr. Roy, Shadanand Roy. बड़े स्वीट आदमी है. Very good. चलिए, चलो guys, let's start. So we started with the economic school of thought, and सारी नजरें अपने अपने नोट्स पे, ठीक है? सबकी नजरें अपने अपने नोट्स पे, ठीक है? सबकी नजरें अपने अपने नोट्स पे, ठीक है? सबकी नजरें नोट्स पे. जो बोलता जा रहा हूं उन टर्म्स को खोजो. Try to recall what we have done yesterday. Okay, whatever terms I'm saying, try to recall. Okay, सबकी नजरें अपने नोट्स पे, ठीक है? All your eyes on your own notes. Become familiar with these notes. साउंड ठीक है, कुछ गड़बड़ आ रहा है, कुछ फट रहा है. चलो, let's start. So we started with economic schools of thought. In that we know that Adam Smith, notes पे नजर. In that we know Adam Smith has been characterized as the father of classical economics. Now, when we came to know about this father of classical economics, we know that he revolutionized how we view economics. So, before knowing what he changed, it was prudent to know what existed. And what existed was feudalism. And in that, who used to take all the 3 key decisions? Feudal lords. And since feudal lords used to take all these decisions, was this a centralized economy or a decentralized economy? This was a centralized economy. What was their view on economics? What is more important, production or trading? Trading, which is why Britishers also came as traders, and their warehouses were also, their factories were warehouses, not production centers. Yaad hai? Chaliye. Then, what was their view on humans? Humans have to be forced to work for public good. Okay, humans have to be forced for working towards public good or public goal. Fair enough? Then, amongst all of this, they promoted what? What was their view on resources? Limited resources. Correct. Therefore, it led to resource acquisition through imperialism. Okay, it led to resource acquisition through imperialism. Currently, colonialism नहीं आया है. ठीक है? Currently, colonialism नहीं है. What exists? Imperialism. Colonialism will come in the next stage. Fair enough? Then, all these things were changed by Adam Smith in his book, An Inquiry into the Characteristics of Where nature and quality of wealth of nations. Okay, and what we meant by that is, what should be your nature? Your wealth lies not in trading but in production, and you should produce according to competitive advantage. Okay, and which is why resources, do not look at resources from a limited view, but rather look at it from a competitive or a wide perspective. Yaad hai? Then what was his view on humans? That they can be made to work through inducements. Take it, through inducements or incentives. Fair enough. Any point we left? ठीक है. इसके बाद, then we thought, we got to know कि भैया, how does this economy work? This economy will work on few things. One is the invisible hand of the market. This invisible hand of the market, is it a centralized system or is it a decentralized system? It is a decentralized system. Does it believe in the human capability or not? Yes, it believes in the human capability. Clear है यहाँ तक? Then, ठीक है, सबकी नजर अपने नोट्स पे, ठीक है, सबकी नजर अपने नोट्स पे. यहाँ तक ठीक है? Then, at the time of crisis, what should we do? Nothing. As in, what should the government do? Nothing. Why? Because we have the belief in self-correcting nature of the market. Correct. Clear till here? Now, I hope you can make sense what is this self-correcting nature of the market. अब देखो, what is this self-correcting nature of the market? Because with self-correcting nature of the market, what law did they emphasize on? Say's law. What law did they emphasize on? Say's law. Now, with self-correcting nature of the market and Say's law, they are essentially supply-side economists or demand-side economists? Supply-side economists. That is why they are saying, let them produce whatever they want. Supply will create its own demand. I hope you remember that, and I hope you remember the economic cycle as well. That is why they are telling that self-correcting nature of the market. Correct, Shivanand? Yes, Sai Sojan, very, very nice. That is what we mean by self-correcting nature of the market, because supply will create its own demand. You don't need to interfere. Clear till here, guys? Chalo. But still, there were some problems because we still had, in fact, by the way, 1920s, World War I, after World War I, what do we have? Roaring 20s. Why? Because they experienced very high growth rates. They experienced very high growth rate. Yahan tak clear hai, guys? But then again, the problem came in Great Depression. And during the Great Depression, who comes in to help us? Keynes. John Maynard Keynes. Correct. John Maynard Keynes. And he gives us the concept of pump priming. Okay, he gives us the concept of pump priming. And in this pump priming, what can you give me an example of any scheme which refers to pump priming in India? Manrega. Very simply. Okay, very simply, Manrega. Yahan tak clear hai? And iske baad, I hope you remember that cycle. ठीक है? Then we know something about in 1970s, जहाँ पे we were doing towards the end. Now we need to know कि monetarist school. How did this monetarist school solve the problem of 1970s stagflation? I hope you remember stagnant growth plus inflation is equal to stagnation. And it happened. Why? Is inflation good or bad, guys? Moderate level is good. Correct. According to Keynes, when is inflation a problem? Till the time there is not full employment. ठीक है? जब तक जो लोग UPSC के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं, it is not a problem. बेरोजगारी अच्छी है. Clear till here, guys? चलो, ऐसे मुंह मत छुपाओ. चलो, so this is roughly what we discussed yesterday. Good to see that you are remembering this. Please keep up this tempo. ठीक है? हर मॉड्यूल में आप लोग ऐसे स्टार्ट करते हो, but towards एक दो हफ्ते बाद ठंडे हो जाते हो. ठंडा नहीं होना है. ठीक है? And थोड़ा सा रिवाइज करते रहिए. Just revise, keep on revising. Things will fall into place. Don't expect कि एक बार में आपको सब याद हो जाएगा. Okay? Don't expect एक बार में सब याद हो जाएगा. Unless you are superhuman, which I don't think any of you are. क्योंकि अगर होते तो यहाँ क्यों बैठे होते? इसलिए परेशान नहीं होना है. ठीक है? चलो, let's begin. So this was the classical school. यहाँ से लिखना शुरू कर सकते हैं आप लोग, fresh में लिखना शुरू कर दीजिए. So this was the classical school. सब ठीक है उधर? So this was the classical school. Now in this, two problems were there. First of all, the first problem we faced was during the Great Depression. And what was the problem? That supply could not create its own demand. Supply could not create its own demand, because usually supply should have had created its own demand, but during the Great Depression inventories were lying unsold. Yahan tak clear hai? Guys, you must have heard that during the Nehruvian era or pre-1991 era, guys is still writing? ठीक, लिख लो. No, Kunal, not PC Mahalanobis. I mean, you can call it PC Mahalanobis, but we are talking largely till 1980s or 90s. What was the phenomena? Largely Indira Gandhi. Still writing, guys, anyone? Done? Okay. Done, guys? Anybody else? Chalo. Now see, again, I think iske niche you are not able to see. Fair. I'll take care of that. If you would remember, or if you would have heard somewhere that prior to 1991, there used to be something called as license quota permit Raj. Have you heard this name? I don't expect you to know. License quota. What is this quota? Quota. Correct. It was industrially controlling that government used to decide how much you can produce. How much quantity you can produce. Who used to decide that? Government. Where is that philosophy coming from? Because market philosophy failed. 20 साल बाद ही तो मिलने वाला है आजादी. 20-30 years बाद ही तो आजादी मिलने वाली है. And 2 decades back, what had failed? Supply could not create its own demand. Government needs to control everything. What does Keynesian say? Active state or weak state? Active state. Keynesian suggests active state. That suggests laissez-faire state. याद है? Laissez-faire, less state. याद है? Free market. Got it till here? So that is why license quota. What is the philosophy of that quota? That quota is coming because the government did not believe in the adage supply will create its own demand. No. We cannot have abundant supply because we saw in Great Depression that it can lead to even certain problems. Got it till here? We'll revisit this when we will talk about, I think, in the second 5-year plan. When we talk about the second 5-year plan, we'll revisit this license quota permit Raj where all those things are coming. But ye dhyan rakhna, okay? That is how these things influence our policy decisions. Okay, that is how these things influence our policy decisions. License quota permit Raj, if I ask you to tell anything, you will only say, sir, it was restrictive. Kaise? How was it restrictive? And if it was restrictive, why are they even willing to restrict it? Koi reason hoga na? Koi reason hoga. That is the reason that you need to inquire. That is why you need to pick up everything from the base. Chalo. We'll revisit this, okay? Anyway, so this Great Depression, what was the solution? Solution was Keynesian pump priming. I hope you remember this term, guys. Okay? Keynesian pump priming was the solution. The second problem was diamond water paradox. What is this diamond water paradox? This is also called as the value paradox. We'll discuss this. But just write this down as of now. Okay? This is to be discussed. One of the problems, this still to be discussed. What is this value paradox, or what is this diamond water paradox? So I'll just tell you this in brief while you guys write it down. So if I ask you that, which is more important for sustaining life, diamond or 1 kg diamond or 1 kg water? Water, 1 kiloliter water. Water is more important for sustaining life. But which is more costly? Diamond. If I ask you the reason, you will say demand and supply. वो reason नहीं है. Okay, that is not the reason. Fair enough. That is what we need to inquire. कि why does this happen? And don't worry, we'll inquire that in depth. Okay, in that we'll cover some microeconomic concepts also. We will not do microeconomics and macroeconomics differently. We will do everything in a story form, so that the microeconomic concepts also get covered in a story. Because I know these concepts you may remember differently or not, but you definitely remember the story. Okay, so anyway, we'll do that. Some microeconomic concepts also we'll do साथ के साथ. Guys, anybody still writing, guys? Online, guys? Everybody's at the same page? Anybody lagging behind in the online? Fair enough. All right. Thank you. Sure. So this was the problem. So how did we solve this problem? We solved this problem 1970s, and this was solved through Keynesian economic school, and here it suggested pump priming, and this led to sustained inflation. This led to sustained inflation. Okay, this led to sustained inflation. So inflation was pre-existing. Okay, inflation was pre-existing. Then what happens in 1970s? Pre-existing inflation plus supply side shock. What was the supply side shock? Oil prices. Oil prices doubled within months due to oil embargo by OPEC. I hope you remember यहाँ तक की बात. ठीक है? I hope you remember this one. We've discussed this. हाँ, मैं ही तो पनौती हूं ना. मैं ही तो हूं जो तुमको पढ़ने से रोक रहा है. लिखा. Chinmay, we will discuss that in the next in next 10 minutes we'll discuss that. ठीक है चिन्मय? गवर्नमेंट का रोल क्या होना चाहिए सोसाइटी में या किसी भी इकोनॉमी में, दैट विल डिस्कस. वो नेक्स्ट टॉपिक ही है, काफी फ्रीक्वेंट टॉपिक है, इसलिए उसको डिस्कस करेंगे. डोंट वरी. ठीक है चिन्मय? Cool. Anybody still writing, guys? जल्दी लिखा, बहुत पढ़ना है. Okay? Still writing, guys, anyone? Okay. Akka. Now see. So, because of this, what did we experience? We witnessed stagflation. Stagflation क्या था? Stagnant growth. Correct. Stagnant growth. Therefore, unemployment क्या होगा? If there is no growth, if there is no increasing production of goods and services, you don't need more labor. That is why increase in unemployment. At the same time, high inflation. Oh, my bad. ये वैसे होता है? Oh, अच्छा. जादू है. Undo वाला option second right में. Yes, Somil, it was a part of that. कर्सिव राइटिंग में लिखा है अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट. मन से देखोगी दिख जाएगा सर. हो गया? Anybody else, guys? चलो. अब देखो. So this was the problem. Again, we needed some or the other solution. अब इसका solution क्या आएगा? बक्को बोलो बोलो. उसमें इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ भी तो स्लो होगा ना. है ना, तभी तो स्टैग्नेंट लिखा है. हाँ, क्या लिखे बताओ? लिखवा दें. स्टैग्नेंट लिख लो चुपचाप, क्योंकि क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछेगा. कॉम्बिनेशन है ना दोनों का. काहे का? स्टैग्नेंट और इन्फ्लेशन का कॉम्बिनेशन है. अभी तुम्हारी हाइट, बचपन में तुम्हारी हाइट बढ़ती थी? जोर से बढ़ी थी? बड़ी थी. अभी स्टैग्नेंट है या स्लो है? अभी स्टैग्नेंट है या स्लो है? हाँ, स्टैग्नेंट भी कह सकते हैं उसको. इतने में मत दिल पे भारी मत करो, उसको स्टैग्नेंट रहने दो. गाइस बातें नहीं. Now see, one of the problems that was pointed out during this time, was that governments often have more to do with the polity rather than economy. Governments have to rather more to do with polity than economics, which is why even though the Keynesian solution, the first 4 to 5 words itself said that during the times of crisis, not every time, during the times of crisis, government should put money into the hands of people, even if it means paying them to digging holes and filling them up. But the problem was that every government thought it is a time of crisis, and they started printing or giving money to the people like crazy. And since there was unemployment, inflation was not an issue. Yahan tak clear hai? This is what Milton J. Friedman is going to come, and he is going to point out that at the end of the day, governments have a tendency of overstimulating the economy, which is why you should roll back the government, and government should rather only focus upon maintaining the money supply in the economy. As long as the money supply in the economy is maintained, government's role is done. Government does not have any major role except maintaining the money supply in the economy. Got it till here, guys? So this is what he is going to say. So please write down. Milton J. Friedman. And what does he suggest? Please write down. He suggested that, thank you Shivanand for helping Anjum. He suggested that governments have a tendency to overstimulate the economy. Governments have a tendency to overstimulate the economy, hence the government's role should be limited. To maintaining the money supply. In the economy. Full stop. This is why he is also referred to as father of monetary policy. Guys, I hope sound and everything is fine. पीछे तक सब कुछ ठीक है? Father of, हाँ, बोलो क्या हुआ? एसी चला दो भाई. एसी वाली लड़ाई में भी पड़ता नहीं हूँ. वो अपने में जो हाथ चलाना चला लो, मेरे को फर्क नहीं पड़ता. एसी का अलग झंझट चलता है, किसी को चाहिए किसी को नहीं चाहिए. एंजॉय. हाँ जा लटक जा लेके चले जा घर अपने साथ. चलो, let's come back guys. Let's come back. So this completes the schools of thought. Now please give the next heading. The camera, we aren't able to see the left side of the screen. ठीक है Disha, we'll do that in a while. Okay, we'll do that in a while. Guys, sorted sir? So please give a heading. During COVID, what was government of India's approach during COVID? What was government of India's approach to tackle the crisis? अब देखो guys, prior to Milton J. Friedman, RBI did not have a monetary policy. प्रकृति RBI की monetary policy होती है, but उसको उतना importance नहीं मिलता है. बाद में जाके we will read that there are two ways in which the government or government institutions can impact the economy. One is something called as the fiscal policy, other is something called as the monetary policy. Till 1970s, there was more emphasis to the fiscal policy. After that, both became very important. ठीक है प्रकृति? Cannon Tonger, which part do you want me to repeat? This heading लिख लो फिर, ये heading लिख लो. Can you see the heading? Cannon Tonger? ये तू लिख ना रे, तू लिख गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया तू लिख. Now see, so we have done largely three schools. The classical school, the Keynesian school and the monetarist school. The recent one being the monetarist school. Tell me this one thing guys, amongst these three schools, which one is the best school? Monetarist, Keynesian or classical? Correct. Nobody knows. Which is why in any kind of crisis, governments usually would implement all the three. Yes, it depends on the philosophy of the prevailing ruling party, which side of the economics they will favor more. Okay? Which side of the economics they will favor more, whether they will favor demand side economics or whether they will favor supply side economics. Clear till here? Now if you will look at Keynesian economics, it advocates which type of government? Active government or a laid back government? Active government. It advocates active government. So this type of government or this type of policy will be more appealing to the capitalists or the market oriented people or the socialists, which are socialists. इतना तो समझ में आता है. Which is why in India largely, okay, this I am telling largely, ये आंसर में मत लिखना क्योंकि ये कहीं documented नहीं है. But largely what happens is BJP usually goes with the free market policies and Congress usually goes with the socialist policies. Which is why whenever there will be a crisis, Congress policies will be more towards demand side of the economics. BJP's policies will be towards supply side of the economics. यहाँ तक clear है? How this happens, we will deal with that when we in the future when we talk about planning and everything. उसमें भी हम देखेंगे कि ये सब crisis में कैसे handle किया inflation. By the way, this chapter will get completed by tomorrow first half. उसके बाद we'll start with inflation. Obviously, you will not find this chapter anywhere in any of the books, and even आगे भी जो करेंगे, most of those things you will not find in any of the books. Guess करो क्यों? वो तो है ही. But the major thing is कि अगर जो whatever I teach, if you find it in a 500 rupee book, तो उसके लिए 1.5-2 लाख क्यों दोगे? तो उसके लिए आपको जो अलग-अलग बुक से पढ़ना है, I've already done that. I've compiled the best resources and all of that. You will not find everything that I'm teaching in the books, but whatever you will not find in the books, I'll anyway give you detailed notes for that. Okay? But roughly it will be prudent if you could read along the notes. Okay? Roughly it will be prudent if you could read along the notes whatever chapter we are doing. So next chapter, so tomorrow second half, we should be able to start with the chapter inflation. Okay? Tomorrow second half, we should be able to start with the chapter inflation, and I have kept 2 to 3 days for inflation. So accordingly chapter को divide कर लीजिएगा. Clear? इन्फ्लेशन के बाद हम लोग करेंगे प्लानिंग, तो अकॉर्डिंगली उसको भी पढ़ लीजिएगा. बता दिया है मैंने, सो दैट इन प्रायर भी आप पढ़ सके. अगर आपको और भी कोई सोर्स है तो इट विल बी बेटर इफ यू रीड. इनफैक्ट सो मेनी रिसोर्सेज आर अवेलेबल ऑन यूट्यूब. यू माइट एज वेल जस्ट पुट एनी चैप्टर ऑन इन्फ्लेशन एंड पढ़ते पढ़ते सो जाओ. फॉर ऑल आई केयर, एज लॉन्ग एज यू आर इन टच विद द सब्जेक्ट. कुछ भी कर लो. आई एम नॉट एक्सपेक्टिंग कि जब पढ़ने बैठ रहे हो तो एकदम पेन पेपर लेके you study according to your will. The only request is you do study, okay? But you do put in some or the other efforts. Anyway, coming back. So Government of India's approach. So in any crisis, okay, the governments would usually either go for demand side or go for supply side. And largely, any government in any country will implement all the 3 schools of thought. Now, COVID crisis, how was it different? How was COVID crisis different than previous crisis? I hope you got the question. You must have heard there was some crisis in 2008. There was some crisis in 1991. There was some crisis in 1997 also, which we will deal, don't worry. How was COVID crisis different than previous crisis? What did I tell here? The difference lied in the fact that COVID was not an economic crisis. COVID was a health sector crisis which spilled over into economics, which is why it needed a slight different approach. Okay, it needed a slight different approach. यहाँ तक clear है? अब देखो, how did we handle it? Obvious सी बात है, 3 schools of thought होंगे. One is the classical, which is laissez-faire. Other is the Keynesian, and the third is monetarist. आगे भी कुछ भी crisis आता है, name of the standard book which we can refer for economics. A&Y is a very good book. Refer that. A&Y वाली book. बहुत अच्छी book है. I think you have gotten Nitin Singhani from the institute. Read that. That's perfectly fine. Any book is fine. NCERT पढ़ने की जरूरत है क्या? कूटी जाओगी. चला इधर देखो. अब देखो classical, Keynesian and monetarist. Now classical. We tried to bring what? Farm laws. Under farm laws, what were we trying to do? Markets being deregulated. हमने markets को किया इसमें क्या? Deregulated. ठीक है, markets को हमने इसमें किया क्या? Deregulated. Because essentially, regulation means more government or less government? More government. So deregulation means less government. Deregulation means less government, and that is what is meant by laissez-faire economy or laissez-faire state. Got it till here? At the same time, labor codes were brought plus infrastructure push. Infrastructure was also given a push. Because with infrastructure push, supply will become easy or difficult? Easy. Supply of goods and services will become easy. So basically in classical, do anything and everything to help private sector produce better. Okay, in classical, the government should do anything and everything to help the private sector produce better. Government should not directly get involved in production. Clear till here, guys? आगे भी जो भी schemes आ रही हैं, you have to analyze them like this, and that is the problem that you do also, which is why if at all you have some scheme and it has some 15-20 points, the reason you are not able to recall them is because you don't characterize them. Okay, you categorize them. इसके objective क्या है? Once you categorize them into different approaches, it becomes easier to remember. It will, I'm not saying it will not be difficult anymore. It will become easier to remember. That is why all these things are important. That is why you need to study anything structurally. Knowing the structure of the topic or knowing the structure of the approach is very, very important. Anybody still writing, guys? Chalo. So this was about classical. What did we do in Keynesian? Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Have you heard of it? We are giving free food and cash transfers to around 80 crore people. ठीक है? Free food and cash transfer. At the same time, not आवास योजना, अन्न, अन्न योजना, अन्न, अन्न, प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण अन्न योजना, ओके, प्रधानमंत्री गरीब कल्याण अन्न योजना, अन्न मीन्स फूड। तेरे को पता है नहीं, मेरे को दिखता है आगे यहां से, मैं लंबा है, ऐसे मत हंस। चल इधर देख। Now see, at the same time, Manrega allocations are also increased. What essentially government is trying to do? Correct. Government is trying to put money into the hands of people, either directly or indirectly. Indirectly by reducing their expenses on ann or food. Fair enough, guys? Now see. Then monetarist. Employment guarantee. Now see, monetarist school. What was the monetarist school? Under the monetarist school, we tried RBI lowered interest rates. As of now, you just understand if interest rates are lowered, money supply will increase. As of now, you just understand that. How does that mechanism happen? We'll deal with that in inflation chapter. ठीक है? हाँ जी? क्या हुआ? Increase. उल्टा है. अगर interest rates are decreasing, money supply will increase. How does this happen? We'll deal with that in inflation chapter. तुम्हें मुझसे प्रेम हो गया तुमको? आ गए तुम मेरे पास? Very very good. पीछे से आ गए तुम पास. देखा असली प्रेम इसे ही कहा गया है शास्त्रों में. Very very good. How does this happen, guys? We'll deal with that later. Okay? How does this happen? We'll deal with this later. As of now, बस जान लीजिए. Then second thing, RBI made credit available to NBFCs, MFIs, microfinance institutions, MSMEs. When the RBI is making credit available, what essentially is happening to the money supply? It's increasing. Okay, what's essentially happening to the money supply? It's increasing. More money with you. पैसे जब मिलेगा तो आप क्या करोगे? बैठ के चाटोगे? No. You will either do two things. Either you will spend or you will save. Prime Minister sanctioned 20 lakh crore rupees during COVID. That's Atmanirbhar Bharat, Krishna, and we'll do that in planning chapter. Don't worry. A part of it will come under Keynesian. Yes. Full form क्या होता है? Non-banking financial companies. These are different types of institutions, guys. Okay, these are different types of institutions. Don't worry. We'll deal with them in money and banking chapter. Okay, don't worry. Some of the terms I can understand that you might not be understanding as of now, but in due course of time, all these will be very easy to you. Okay, in due course of time, all these will be too very easy for you. छाती मत फुला लेना, हाय अरे कहाँ पढ़ा दिया रे, ऐसा छाती मत फुला लेना, ठीक है? समझ में आ जाएगा. These are very easy terms. Anybody still writing, guys? Available to आगे. Cursive writing है. NBFCs, micro finance institutions, MSMEs. अब पूछोगे ये क्या लिखा? Etc. Does major economic policy economic development through schools take place in what way? Lakshmi, we can discuss this after the class. A good doubt, we can discuss this after the class. Guys, shan. अब क्या हुआ तुमको? ए भाई बंद कर दे भाई, वैसे बंद कर दे. Anyway, still writing, guys? Anyone? Chalo. Now see. So now see. So this is how any crisis is dealt. Okay, this is how any crisis is dealt. किसी भी क्राइसिस में हमेशा ये तीन स्कूल्स होंगे. यस, कितना कौन सा डील हो रहा है वो तब अलग की बात है. ठीक है, अब गेस करो, बट जस्ट ट्राई टू टेक अ वाइल्ड गेस. बीजेपी एंड कांग्रेस का मैंने बताया था. नाउ अगेन व्हेन आई टेक दीज नेम्स आई डोंट intend on talking politics, but again some or the other way when I connect economy with politics, you guys tend to retain better. Okay, so in that context try to take a wild guess, Atmanirbhar Bharat package, 20 lakh crore package, 20 lakh crore package, 20 lakh crore package, because uska significance पूछो क्या. That was the political statement कि at that time Pakistan's whole economy was less than 20 lakh crore. So that Pakistan's economy was less than 20 lakh crore. So that was a political statement. जितना इनकी economy है उतना तो हमारा relief package है बे. That was the political statement. Okay. Now coming back. COVID, economic crisis. Who is at the helm of affairs? BJP. Which school of thought will they prefer? Supply side or demand side? Supply side. Supply side. ये कौन सा साइड है? ये डिमांड साइड. और इसमें कितना, ये किस साइड में आएंगे? सप्लाई साइड में आएंगे. यहां तक क्लियर है? Which is why this was given 2 lakh crore and the other two were given 18 lakh crore. So Atmanirbhar Bharat package, was it mostly supply side or demand side? Supply side. Got it till here? That is how this is influenced. Okay, that is how this is influenced. यहाँ तक clear है? You need to understand these things very simply. Okay. Fair enough. मैं बीजेपी लिखवाना नहीं चाह रहा हूँ, but अच्छा, just write down this. आत्मनिर्भर भारत, हाँ वैसे ही लिखूंगा. Please write down Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Guys online, please write this down. Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Atmanirbhar Bharat package was largely focused on supply side of the economics. Was largely focused on the supply side of the economics. Was largely focused on the supply side of the economics. Was largely focused on the supply side of economics. In bracket write down 18 lakh crores allocation. 18 lakh crore allocation, bracket close. Allocation, obviously rupees में है, 18 lakh crore allocation, bracket close, comma, while the demand side was around 2 lakh crore allocation. Around 2 lakh crore allocation. Full stop. Full stop. This is because the government had more faith in the supply side of economy. Got it till here, guys? धन्यवाद मैडम. यहां तक क्लियर है गाइस? चलो मैडम आपका क्लियर हुआ? पीछे वाली. थैंक यू मैडम. मैडम नहीं आप नहीं, माता जी हुआ क्लियर? ठीक है. बको
That is why they are more focusing on supply, because supply होगी तो inflation, they can cut down the inflation cost.
Not necessarily, because उस समय I mean you were talking कि inflation ज़्यादा था, that is why they were focusing on supply side. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. Why? Because even the inflation was high in US. Inflation was high in US. Still they chose to print more than $3 trillion, more than the economy of India. So ऐसा नहीं है. At the same time there was this RBI governor, not Raghuram Rajan, Subba Rao, ठीक है, नहीं not Shaktikant Das, Subba, former RBI governor. So he also suggested what? He suggested, and amongst the others, they suggested that the government should also print money and distribute amongst the people. So what you are saying was more influenced by the philosophy of the government, because they wanted it to sustain from the supply side. But yes, if there would have been some other ruling party, we would have tackled it a little differently, might as well. As we will see in the inflation chapter, that how was 2008 crisis tackled and how was 2020 crisis tackled. Okay, inflation chapter mein we will compare the two, both different parties, both different approaches, and we will deal with that. Okay, thoda sa just be a little patient for this 1 week. Okay, एक week le thoda patient ho ja. All these terms you will get familiar. Okay, I get the impulse and the inquisitiveness, which is good, by the way. Okay, this inquisitiveness is good, and we will deal all of that. Okay, we will deal with all of that. But economy may try to understand my limitation. Few of the concepts I need to introduce prematurely, even though I cannot discuss them in detail at that moment. Okay, but after inflation chapter, काफी कुछ आप लोग को समझ में आने लगेगा. Okay, which means by next Monday, not Monday, I mean like in the next 3-4 classes, what a lot of terms you will get familiarized with. ठीक है, चलो let's come back. हाँ जी मैडम, आप पूछेंगे ना, पूछ लीजिए. अगर आउट ऑफ कॉन्टेक्स्ट होगा तो क्लास के बाद डील कर लेंगे. क्लास के बाद बता देंगे देवी जी, इसमें कुछ ऐसा टेंशन वाली बात नहीं है, बाद में कर लेंगे. प्लूरल है बस. अगर 3-4 बुक हो जाएंगे तो इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ेंगे, और अगर एक बुक होगी तो इकोनॉमी पढ़ेंगे. चलो अब देखो, now we have seen these three. Sir, I did not understand supply side leads to employment generation and how 2 lakh crore is demand supply. Shambhavi, supply side leads to employment generation, 2 lakh crore is demand. 2 lakh crore is demand side, not demand supply, Shambhavi. Okay, 2 lakh crore is demand side. Why? Because the government is directly putting money into the hands of people. This is 2 lakh crore. These two are 18 lakh crore. ठीक है श्याम भाई, दिस इज डिमांड साइड. इफ यू रिमेंबर यस्टरडेज क्लास, वो जो पूरी साइकिल बनवाई थी, ठीक है, दिस इज डिमांड साइड का लीवर and these two are supply side का लीवर. Is this clear श्याम भाई? सो गई क्या शाम में भी? Now see, we have seen, basically we are putting in more money under supply. Correct, Shambhavi, yes. Now see, so we have seen the classical, we have seen the the Keynesian, we have seen the monetarist. All of them have different views on what is the role of government. Okay, all of them have different views on what is the role of government. And in fact, there is something that even you will be asked even in your interviews, and you can be asked in your mains as well. And few of the concepts you can be asked in your prelims as well. Okay, so now let's try to understand what should be the role of the government today. Okay, so let's start with this. What should be the role of the government today? What should be the role of the government today? Now this question can be dealt in two ways. This question can be dealt in two ways. Shambhavi, I hope your doubt is clear. Yes, the second statement that you have put is the right one. All right, Shambhavi. Chalo. So what should be the role of the government today? This has to be answered with two questions. Why are we even doubting the role of government? गवर्नमेंट का रोल हम डाउट कर ही क्यों रहे हैं, और अगर कर दिया है, नाउ दैट वी हैव डाउटेड इट, व्हाट indeed is the role? Okay, what indeed is the role? अब देखो, why are we even doubting the role of the government? Why are we doubting even the role of the government? Is because this is classical school of economic thought. Sometimes this is also referred as liberal school of political thought. Sometimes it is also referred as liberal school of political thought. Why liberal? It is coming from the word liberty to markets. Okay, it is coming from the word liberty to markets. Okay, it is coming from the word liberty to markets. That is why it is being called as liberal school. Okay, that is why it is being called as liberal school. Then see, in this school, what do we talk about? We talk about a laissez-faire state. Laissez-faire state means again less, correct, plus this has belief in self correcting, correct, nature of market. This has belief in self correcting nature of the market. This much we already know. Done, guys? Then what happens from 1920s to 1970s? We see Keynesian school of economic thought. Okay, Keynesian school of economic thought. Corresponding welfare state क्या होता है? Corresponding आता है welfare state school of political thought. Welfare state school of political thought. Welfare state school of political थॉट, वेलफेयर स्टेट स्कूल ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थॉट. अब देखो हाउ डिड इट कम बाय. लिबरल तो समझ में आता है, बट लिबरल वालों ने ऐसा क्या हुआ कि वेलफेयर स्टेट के लिए आना स्टार्ट कर गए. द ट्रिगर वॉज द 1928-29 to mid 1930s. This was the time of what happened during this time. क्या हुआ था इस समय? वही जो आप लोग को रोज होता है, द ग्रेट डिप्रेशन. Now, in this Great Depression, what happened? Guys, ऊपर का लिख लिया है? ऊपर का लिख लिया है? During this Great Depression, there were two different types of countries. एक स्ट्रगल कर रहा था, दूसरा प्रॉस्पर कर रहा था. One was struggling, other was flourishing. Flourishing and the other was struggling. Struggling वाले कौन से थे? US, UK, फ्रांस. फ्लरिशिंग कौन था? करेक्ट, रशिया एंड जर्मनी. एंड दिस टाइम ड्यूरिंग द ग्रेट डिप्रेशन, ओके, ड्यूरिंग द ग्रेट डिप्रेशन रशिया में क्या था? कम्युनिज्म चल रहा था. If you would remember 1918 communist revolution, the Russian revolution is called as the communist revolution. Communism is a form of socialism. और इधर जर्मनी क्या चल रहा था? Nazism. What is Nazism? Nationalism, socialism. It is a socialist philosophy. Okay? It is a socialist philosophy. Nazi फुल फॉर्म क्या होता है? नेशनलिस्ट सोशलिस्ट. ओके, फुल फॉर्म क्या है इसका? नेशनलिस्ट सोशलिस्ट. नेशनलिस्ट सोशलिस्ट. nationalist, socialist. And socialism, they advocate weak government or strong government? Strong government. And that is why everybody thought that, yeah, there must be something good about having strong government. Because see, where these countries are struggling, they are flourishing. So that is why everybody should adopt strong government. Everybody should adopt strong government. And that is why these countries will adopt Keynesian. Because they already have strong state. Because they already have strong state. So tell me this one thing, Keynesian economics brought welfare state philosophy in capitalist economies or socialist economies? सवाल समझ में आया? क्या पूछा मैंने? Keynesian economics brought welfare state tendencies in socialist economies or capitalist economies. सवाल समझ में आया? सोशलिस्ट में तो ऑलरेडी है ना? सोशलिस्ट ऑलरेडी है, तो लाना किस में पड़ा था? कैपिटलिस्ट. क्लियर हुआ? चलो इसको लिखेंगे, हम लोग लिखेंगे. विल राइट दैट डाउन, डोंट वरी. कभी कभी दीज क्वेश्चंस गेट आस्क्ड इन योर दिस जो प्रीलिम्स के टेस्ट सीरीज हैं आप लोग के कोचिंग के, वहां पे पूछ लेते हैं. नहीं तो कभी कभी ग्रेट डिप्रेशन के बारे में पूछ लेते हैं. दे माइट आस्क. In fact, Great Depression पे one question has been asked in your this thing, world history. अब वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री में इकोनॉमिक्स तो उतनी पढ़ोगे नहीं, हल्का फुल्का पढ़ के निकल जाते हैं. Questions I have not shared yet. Questions I'll share today. Anybody still writing, guys? क्या चीज? लिखवाता हूँ. अब लिखवाता हूँ, समझ में आ जाएगा. Done? Anybody else, guys? चलो, अब देखो. So, please write down. It was assumed that since the strong state societies or strong state economies, were flourishing, during the Great Depression, comma, the same model should be adopted elsewhere. Everywhere else. Full stop. Hence, the capitalist or free market economies, adopted Keynesian economic school of thought. Adopted Keynesian economic school of thought. Adopted Keynesian economic school of thought. यहां तक क्लियर है गाइस? यही बताया था मैंने. ठीक है, ब्रैकेट में लिख लो Keynesian school equal to, just write down in bracket, Keynesian school equal to strong state or weak state? Strong state. Keynesian school is equal to strong state plus pump priming. Plus, guys, will this school believe in the self-correcting nature of the markets or not? Therefore, please write down no belief in self-correcting nature of markets. No belief in self-correcting nature of markets. No belief in self-correcting nature of markets. Socialism का भी क्या belief होगा self-correcting nature of market पे? That will also not believe in self-correcting nature of markets. यहाँ तक clear है guys? Now see. So this is what was happening. Now please write down a question. Prelims question, please write down. Please write down a prelims question, guys. Which of the following state best describes the characteristic of a welfare state? Describe the characteristic of a welfare state. Option A. It works for the welfare. of all its citizens. It works for the welfare of all its citizens. Second, the state is actively involved. The state is actively involved in the economy. The state is actively involved in the economic decisions. The state is actively involved in the economic decisions. The state is actively involved in the economic decisions. The state is actively involved in the economic decisions, including redistribution of surplus. Including redistribution of surplus. Including redistribution of surplus. Including redistribution of surplus. Option C. It is a state with high taxes. It is a state with high taxes. And option D, it is a state with welfare. It is a state with welfare policies. With welfare policies like pensions, etc. Pension like pensions, etc. Take a minute. अब देखो, मैक्स टू मैक्स आपको कंफ्यूजन आ सकता है ए और बी में, ठीक है. मैक्स टू मैक्स यू कैन गेट कंफ्यूज इन ए और बी. देखो, नॉट I'll tell. Max to max you can get confused in A or B. Okay, max to max you can get confused in A or B. The only problem is that welfare state you guys usually understand as something which will work for the welfare of people. That is why the name welfare state. Which government will say it will not work for the people? Which government will say it will not work for the people? Which government will say it will not work transparently? Every government will say it will work transparently. So do we have a transparent school of political thought? Which government will say it will be corruption free? Everybody says, but do we have a corruption free school of political thought? ये तो expected है ना. This is expected that the government, whenever it will behave in a transparent way. It will be corruption free. Got it till here? But still, a need was felt to specifically mention welfare state. Corruption free state नहीं है, transparent state नहीं है, but welfare state है. Which government will say that it will not work for the welfare of people? अब तुम वोट दे दियो ना, घंटे से तुम अपना कुछ करवा के दिखा लेना हमसे. Got it till here, guys? Which is why welfare state has a very specific connotation. Welfare state has a very specific connotation जो कि आप लोग को अभी बताया थोड़ी देर पहले. Active state government, active state role in the economy. ठीक है? Active state role in the economy. It does not mean merely working for the welfare of people, because every society will work for the welfare of people. Even the capitalist economies, what do they say to the people? घंटे से तुम्हारे लिए काम नहीं करेंगे. Do they say it to their people like that? No, even they would have certain welfare policies. Merely having welfare policies does not make a government a welfare state. Got it till here? For a welfare state, what is there? What is the requirement? Active participation of state in the economy. Got it till here, guys? Currently, And this I'm talking with respect to prelims, not mains. In mains, you can argue both sides. Okay, in mains, you can argue both sides. Currently, so by the way, what is the answer for this question? B for Bangalore. Okay, B for Bangalore. Clear till here? B for Bangalore, चाहो तो टिक कर लो उसमें से. ठीक है? अब देखो. The answer is B for Bangalore. The answer is B for Bangalore. Got it till here, guys? Online, I hope everybody has got it. चलो. हाँ जी मैडम. Welfare is हाँ, Kenny is incorrect.
So, Keynesian economics school works when there is time of crisis.
Usually, okay.
So, government will go for redistribution of surplus only during the time of crisis.
Every time. That is what is the welfare state. Okay, that is what is the welfare state, because if government, if it is largely the same. Okay, it is largely the same. It is just that government thinks it is always in the mode of crisis. Whatever is happening, everything is a crisis, and therefore it is always in a firefighting mode. Guys, शांत. ये फर्स्ट बेंच पे बैठा है तू रे, ये उधर, अबे आगे देख ले. ठीक, शांत हो जा. Clear, madam? It is because the government thinks that it is always in the firefighting mode. Okay, if you will see the last year also, some or the other crisis has been happening. Okay, so if the government is believing that it wants to go through the path of Keynesian, it will always say कि हाँ crisis चल रहा है, I need to redistribute.
That's the one reason for introducing central bank.
Anything else, guys? Everything clear till here? चलो. हाँ. कौन सा क्वेश्चन? पूछ तो लिए. आर्ग्यू नहीं बताएंगे. चल नाउ सी. हाँ, यस, याद. राइट. अब देखो, इसलिए फ्लो मत तोड़ा करो. अब देखो, नाउ टेल मी द आंसर ऑफ दिस स्टेटमेंट इन अ यस और नो. आई एम नॉट एक्सपेक्टिंग कि दोनों साइड खेल जाना. ओके, दिस इज नॉट अ मेंस क्वेश्चन. आई एम आस्किंग दिस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू प्रीलिम्स. Do you think the current categorization of the working of government of India, can it be characterized as a welfare state? सवाल समझ में आया? सवाल समझ में आया? क्या सवाल था मेरा? Do you think that the current functioning of governments in US, UK, India, can it be characterized as being welfare state? सवाल समझ में आया? I hope you have an answer in your mind. I don't care whether you are right or wrong. I hope at least you have some answer in your mind. Or even if you are confused, I am expecting कि चलो कुछ दिमाग में चल रहा होगा. सवाल समझ में आया, guys? So that is the question, that whether can we characterize the current Indian state functioning largely as a welfare state or not? सवाल समझ में आया? अब देखो. The answer is no. Why? Because after 1970s, we gave up this philosophy. After 1970s, we gave up this philosophy, and the current governments across the world are referred to something. अभी बताया नहीं, बस next बताना ही, उसी के लिए question पूछा है. They are referred to something as neoliberal states. They are referred to something as neoliberal. Neo, largely you understand it as new. Liberal, neoliberal. The same thing will be introduced in some new format. Got it till here, guys? ये question कहीं side में लिख लो बस. Just write down this question somewhere in the side. Do you think that the current governments in Do you think that the current governments in US, UK, India, US, UK, India, US, UK, India, can be characterized as a welfare state? नहीं कुणाल, थोड़ा आप कंफ्यूज हो रहे हो, इस पे बाद में बात करते हैं. आई मीन यू आर नॉट रॉन्ग व्हाट यू आर सेइंग, बट थोड़ा सा दो तीन चीजें मिक्स कर रहे हो, ठीक है, इस पे बात करते हैं. क्वेश्चन मार्क इक्वल टू नो, question mark equal to no, even though they have welfare policies, even though they have welfare policies, comma, the government does not actively play a role in play a role in play a role in the economy, play a role in the economy, full stop. They are characterized as neo-liberal states. They are characterized as neoliberal states. Okay, they are characterized as neoliberal states. In bracket, write down just for your own sake. In mains, you can argue that India is a welfare state. If the question is asked in mains में तो कुछ भी कर सकते हो ना, आपकी मर्जी है. क्या इंडिया में गरीबी है? डिपेंड करता है आपको क्या लिखना है, आपका मन क्या है, ठीक है. So in mains you can argue either side. Okay, in mains you can argue either side, but in prelims it has to be no. Why? Because it is a neoliberal state. What was before? Even though they have welfare policies के पहले क्या बताया guys? Even though they have welfare policies, इसके no comma, ब्रैकेट में लिख लीजिए. In mains you can argue both sides. In bracket write down, in mains you can argue both sides. In bracket write down, in mains you can argue both sides. Mains में तो आप आर्ग्यू कर ही सकते हो कि वेलफेयर स्टेट है कि नहीं, ठीक है. मेंस में तो आप बोल सकते हो. प्रीलिम्स में इट इज अ न्यू लिबरल स्टेट. टेक्निकली इट इज अ न्यू लिबरल स्टेट. यहां तक क्लियर है? अब देखिए, अब देखो, so 1970s to now this was monetarist school of economic thought, monetarist school of economic thought, and इसके अंदर rollback of welfare state. In fact 1970s में US and UK they had something called as Reaganism and Thatcherism. Reaganism and Thatcherism. Okay. Reaganism and Thatcherism. Reaganism and Thatcherism. Ronald Reagan US president थे and Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister of UK. Both of them had the same economic philosophy, and what was that? The neo-liberal state. The neo-liberal state. Okay, the neo-liberal state. The neo-liberal state. And this, what did this do? Again, importance given to market. Importance was given to market. Okay, importance was given to market. प्राकृति, आई होप आपका डाउट सॉल्व हो गया था. कुणाल आपका डाउट क्लास के बाद अभी डील कर लेंगे, ठीक है? Importance was given to market, but government's role was also important, ठीक है? और यही क्वेश्चन है कि गवर्नमेंट रोल इंपॉर्टेंट है तो क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है? दैट इज द क्वेश्चन दैट वी स्टार्टेड विद, ओके? दैट इज द क्वेश्चन दैट वी स्टार्टेड विद कि व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट? हाँ जी मैडम। नहीं मैडम, इसमें रोल बैक हो गया है बट हाँ, मॉनिटरिस्ट ही तो न्यू लिबरल है ना मैडम, मॉनिटरिस्ट ही न्यू लिबरल है, किनेजियन में एक्टिव है। न्यू क्लासिकल पहले आ गया था मैडम, उसमें मत जाइए। न्यू क्लासिकल केम इन अराउंड 1800s ओनली. न्यू क्लासिकल इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम न्यू लिबरल. एनीबॉडी स्टिल राइटिंग गाइस? ऊपर करना. Done? Okay. Anybody still writing, guys? Chalo. So, just to summarize this, क्लासिकल ने क्या बोला? मार्केट इज वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट देन गवर्नमेंट. किनीजियन ने क्या बोला? गवर्नमेंट इज वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट देन मार्केट. मॉनिटरिस्ट ने क्या बोला? मार्केट इज ग्रेटर देन गवर्नमेंट प्लस गवर्नमेंट इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट. ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट इज ऑल्सो इंपॉर्टेंट. ठीक है, रफली दिस इज द आर्ग्यूमेंट दैट वी हैव हैड इन द पास्ट 15-20 odd minutes. Got it till here, guys? अंकिता समझ में आ जाएगा, परेशान मत हो. यहां तक क्लियर है गाइस? एनीबॉडी स्टिल राइटिंग? that India is a welfare state. Initially, I thought that India is a welfare state because of its various policies. Yes, Ishika, you are not wrong. We do have welfare state principles. Okay, we do have a welfare state principles. In mains, you can argue, definitely you can argue that India is a welfare state. Similarly, in mains, you can also argue that India is not a welfare state because the private sector is taking a lead. Education has been privatized, health has been privatized. You can argue both ways. But technically, in prelims, if it is asked, you have to tell that it is a neoliberal state. Why? Because for a welfare state, the major criteria has to be what? That the government has to be actively involved in the economy. Just like license quota permit Raj. Okay? License quota permit Raj. That is why LPG policies, which philosophy were they influenced by, guys? Which philosophy were they influenced by? LPG? Neoliberalism. What is the L in the LPG? Liberalization. What is the L in the LPG? That is liberalization. And what is the underlying complete philosophy? Neoliberalism. Because liberalism, and then what are they favoring? P for privatization, and G, globalization. How will they globalize? Because the private sector will get interconnected. How do you define globalization? सवाल समझ में आया? सवाल समझ में आया, guys? Globalization, how do you define globalization. Very simply put, globalization is more interconnectedness of the world. Globalization is more interconnectedness of the world. That can be in political sphere, social sphere, economic sphere. Clear? Economic sphere, it means more trade. Social, वहां कुछ हो रहा है, इम्पैक्ट यहां भी आ रहा है. पॉलिटिकल, बम कहीं और फटता है, आवाज यहां आती है. और इट विल हियर गाइस. सो ग्लोबलाइजेशन मींस इंटरकनेक्टेडनेस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. पॉलिटिकल होगा, सोशल होगा एंड इकोनॉमिक होगा. सर जी तनिक पानी बनवा देते. और इट विल हियर गाइस. चलो अब देखो. सो this is saying that the government's role is also important, and that is what is our next point of inquiry. What is this role indeed? Okay, role important hai to role hai kya? Got it till here guys? Let's now try to answer this question. बोलो.
Government of India is in a welfare state. It is now shifting towards the neoliberalism with the LPG.
यही मेंस में दे देगा, यही मेंस की स्टेटमेंट दे देगा और लास्ट में बोल देगा आर्ग्यू. बोल सकते हो, कुछ भी बोल सकते हो. बट वेलफेयर स्टेट कब था? टेक्निकली इट वाज बिफोर 1990s. ऑल द रिफॉर्म्स दैट वी टुक दे वर टुवर्ड्स न्यू लिबरलिज्म. अब दिस कैन बी आर्ग्यूड वेदर वी आर मोर न्यू लिबरल और वेदर वी आर मोर welfare. ठीक है, that can be argued. Technically we are new liberal. Technically we are new liberal. But subjectively तो कुछ भी argue कर सकते हो यार. ठीक है, हाँ जी मैडम.
Sir, as neoliberal and monetary school of economics, what is the same thing?
Sorry madam. As
Neoliberal and monetary school of economics, what is the same thing?
neoliberal school of political thought, monetary school of economic thought. ये पॉलिटी की बात करता है, वो इकोनॉमी की बात करता है. धन्यवाद मैडम. ठीक है, न्यू लिबरल स्कूल ऑफ पॉलिटिकल थॉट है. नीचे वाले जितने वो सब पॉलिटिकल थॉट है, ऊपर वाले जितने वो सब इकोनॉमिक थॉट है.
Okay, so as you know that monetary school of economics was open to monetary policy, right? So monetary policy is run by the central bank of the economy. So central bank goes to the welfare of the people.
Central bank wants private sector to work for the welfare of people. That is why it just influences money supply. ठीक है, through inducing money supply. Directly RBI काम नहीं करेगा. ठीक है guys, guys शांत 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 शांत. यहाँ तक क्लियर है guys? चलो now see what is the role of the government. अब इसमें आती हैं दो चीज. भाई the classical emphasis. What was the classical emphasis? Classical emphasis, less state. Less बोला है, no state नहीं बोला है. क्या बोला है? Less state they have said. They are not saying no state. Less means something has to exist. Something has to exist. Which is why what are the important role? Enforcement. मेरे को पता है पूछोगे क्या लिखा है. Enforcement of contracts. Okay, enforcement of contracts. मान लीजिए you entered into some contracts. मान लीजिए you entered into some contract and the other party has backed out of it. जाओ नहीं करते. Now I will not oblige my, I will not go through my obligation. Who will you go to? जाके मर्डर कर दोगे क्या? नहीं. Preferably नहीं. Preferably not. Preferably not. But you will go through to a consumer forum. You will go to some dispute settlement body. ठीक है? You will go through consumer forum में जाओगे, dispute settlement body में जाओगे. इसीलिए, for example, consumer forums. Then law and order or डिफेंस, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर एंड डिफेंस. क्योंकि अगर लॉ एंड ऑर्डर एंड डिफेंस इज नॉट मेंटेन, हाउ विल यू कंडक्ट इकोनॉमिक ट्रांजैक्शंस? यूक्रेन में कैसे होगा नहीं तो. So for a stable economy, for a stable private sector, for a flourishing private sector, classicals ने बोला, classicals said that these are the rules. So what indeed is the role of the government? The classical emphasis was on these three things: enforcement of contracts, law and order and defense. If at all you have any kind of confusion, इसमें लिख लो, फॉर एग्जाम्पल यूक्रेन में दोनों ही एग्जिस्ट नहीं करते हैं. Therefore, private sector is suffering. Their economy is suffering because the state is not able to do justice to its role of maintaining law and order and defense. Got it till here, guys? Then see, then neoliberal or later emphasis, neoliberal or later emphasis. इसमें इसमें तो देश चल ही नहीं रहा ना एक तो. फिर तो वहां पे बेचारे ट्रंप ने उसको हड़का भी दिया, शांति से बैठा था वो. एनीवे, नाउ सी, सो न्यूलिबरल और जो बाकी लेटर जो एम्फेसिस आया आफ्टर 1970s, ओके, आफ्टर 1970s व्हाट एम्फेसिस दे गेव ऑन द रोल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट. फर्स्ट दे सेड, बस एक बार लिख लीजिए, वी विल टॉक अबाउट देम इन डिटेल, ठीक है, जस्ट राइट देम डाउन, विल टॉक अबाउट देम इन डिटेल. फर्स्ट इज to take care of natural monopolies, to take care of natural monopolies. Then to reduce negative externalities, to reduce negative externalities. करेक्ट इशिका. और रीस्टार्ट करने के लिए मिनरल डील, to reduce negative externalities. What are these negative externalities? We will deal with them, ठीक है, don't worry about them. And third is, I hope you remember this word, we had touched upon it yesterday, provision of पब्लिक गुड्स. अगर आपको याद हो, पब्लिक गोल एंड पब्लिक गुड्स वी हैड स्टम्बल्ड अपॉन, एंड आई टोल्ड दैट पब्लिक गुड्स इज द टेक्निकल टर्म. लेट्स डील विद दीस टर्म्स वन बाय वन. या एक तो गोल कल लिखवाया था ताकि कंफ्यूज ना हो, बट द टेक्निकल टर्म इज पब्लिक गुड्स. Anybody still writing, guys? Chalo. Now see, what are these natural monopolies? अब देखो natural monopolies. What are these natural monopolies? Natural monopolies are those sectors where the final product cannot be differentiated. What did I say? What are natural monopolies? Natural monopolies are those sectors in which the final product cannot be differentiated. For example, electricity. For example, electricity. If Reliance makes electricity and if Adani makes electricity, can any one of them make electricity in such a way कि छुओ तो करंट ना मारे? अगर छुओगे तो 440 वाट का लगेगा झटका. Because there cannot be any differentiation in the end product. There cannot be any differentiation in the end product. Got it till here? So electricity sector becomes an example of a natural monopoly. Okay, electricity sector becomes an example of a natural monopoly. ये समझ में आया? For a very long time, water was also considered as this thing. जब तक ये protein water, sparkling water, ये सब water नहीं आ गए, तब तक पानी को लगता है पानी is also a natural monopoly. But अब हाँ, black water पता नहीं कौन सा वाला है भाई, है? Alkaline water, पता है मेरे को सब. In either case. So for a very long time, even water was considered as the distribution of water was considered as a natural monopolistic sector. In sectors में we cannot allow free competition. In sectors में we cannot allow free competition. Why? सवाल समझ में आया? धन्यवाद मैडम. Natural monopolistic sectors में we cannot allow free competition. Why? Because then the sectors will perish. Because then the companies will perish. क्योंकि how will they install these big setups if they are not sure about the demand? इसीलिए हर एरिया का सप्लायर अलग है. दिल्ली में भी देखोगे कहीं राजधानी आ जाएगा, कहीं BACS आ जाएगा, अलग अलग सप्लायर्स हैं, डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स हैं, डिस्कॉम्स. देयर आर डिफरेंट डिस्कॉम्स बिकॉज द गवर्नमेंट हैज एलोकेटेड कि हाँ दिस इज योर मार्केट. दूसरा वाला इधर नहीं आएगा, द अदर वुड नॉट कम इन दिस वन. ठीक है. सो व्हाट आर दीज नेचुरली मोनोपोलिस्टिक सेक्टर्स? These are those sectors in which the final product cannot be differentiated. For example, if Adani makes electricity or if Reliance makes electricity, the final product will have same characteristics. Are you clear? चलो इसको लिख लो जल्दी से. Alternatives है मैडम उसके. I mean, मेट्रो से कर सकते हैं, ऑल्टरनेटिव्स है. नेचुरल मोनोपोली नहीं है, वो मोनोपोली बनाई गई है. आई मीन इट इज अ गवर्नमेंट मेड मोनोपोली. कृष्णा एक बार आप लिख लीजिए, लिखते लिखते समझ में आ जाएगा. ठीक है. साई सौजन्य एक बार लिख लीजिए, लिखते लिखते समझ में आ जाएगा. प्लीज राइट दिस डाउन. कुछ लिखा हम लोगों ने नहीं? प्लीज राइट डाउन. नेचुरली मोनोपोलिस्टिक सेक्टर्स, उसी के नीचे लिखो, इसी के नीचे. नेचुरली मोनोपोलिस्टिक सेक्टर्स आर दोज, naturally monopolistic sectors are those in which final product cannot be differentiated. In which final product cannot be differentiated. For example, final product cannot be differentiated. For example, electricity sector. अब आप इतना समझ जाओगे. ब्रैकेट में लिख लो, आप लोग पे ज्यादा भरोसा ना करना ही बेटर है. ब्रैकेट में लिख लो. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, ब्रैकेट राइट डाउन इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, ब्रैकेट राइट डाउन अदानी एंड रिलायंस. Adani and Reliance would produce an electricity with same characters. With same characters. With same characters. Neoliberal economy. वो एक इम्पैक्ट है बट डिफाइन नहीं कर सकते उसको. लक्ष्मी Got it till here, guys? Below that, write down. In such sectors, the government indeed needs to intervene. In such sectors, the government indeed needs to intervene. In such sectors, the government indeed needs to intervene. So usually government should intervene or not in any sector? No. But in such sectors, it should intervene. Okay? Usually it should not intervene, but in such sectors it should intervene. Clear? अब देखो. Next is to reduce negative externalities. A prudent question would be, उसी के नीचे लिख लीजिएगा. ठीक है. नेगेटिव एक्सटर्नलिटीज के नीचे लिख लीजिएगा. A prudent question would be what are externalities? And by answering externalities, some will be positive externalities, some will be negative externality. Got it till here, guys? Some will be positive externalities, some will be negative externality. You said something about perishing of the sector. Yes, Krishna, agar in sectors mein government does not intervene, the companies would perish. ठीक है Krishna? चलो. There will be some negative externalities and there will be some positive externalities. यहाँ तक clear है? अब देखो. Externalities, what are externalities? Externalities होती हैं when the functioning of a business does not merely impact its internal environment but also external environment. मुझे पता है ऊपर चला गया. सुन. What did I say? When the functioning of a business internal environment also impacts its external environment. For example, क्लास के बाद आप लोग क्लास खत्म हुई मान लीजिए. क्लास के बाद you might have some doubts and those doubts are better solved, best solved, not better, best solved. How? By discussing amongst yourselves. Where? On the road. So when you guys discuss those questions on the road and that blocks the traffic, does that in any way impact the internal functioning of the classes? No. But it is impacting external environment. It is impacting external environment. Coal production, electricity through coal production. Electricity के production में is it related? Will electricity production be hampered or negatively impacted by the pollution? Pollution is an externality. And which type of externality? Negative externality. It is a which type of externality? Negative externality. ये समझ में आया? Clear? चलो तो पहले externality की definition लिख लेते हैं and then we'll divide positive and negative. ठीक है? Externality. What are externalities? What are, correct Ravi? What are externalities? Please write down. It refers to how and a businesses, it refers to how a firms लिख लो firms, it refers to how a firm's internal environment functioning impacts the external environment. Impacts the external environment. Impacts the external environment. For example, students blocking traffic. For example, students blocking traffic after the class. Students blocking traffic after the class. यहाँ तो फिर भी उतना नहीं होता है, अंदर की गलियों में तो बच जाता है. Students blocking traffic after the class. Or it clear? दो एरो बना दीजिए. One will be positive externalities. And the other will be negative externalities. One will be the positive externalities, other will be the negative externalities. Positive externality क्या होगा? Impact is positive. Negative क्या होगा? Impact is negative. और इट है सीधा एग्जांपल लिख लेते हैं. चलो. So negative. For example, coal power plants what is their main aim and what is the externality. Main aim is profit and power. उठा रहा हूं. Main aim is profit and power generation, rather profit through power generation. But externality क्या है? Air, correct, air pollution. So this needs to be curbed or this needs to be promoted? Curb. This needs to be reduced. Okay, this needs to be reduced. Similarly, positive externality. ये बताओ, recycling plants. For the recycling plants, the reduction in waste. The reduction in waste, is it in the internal environment or is it in the external environment? सवाल समझ में आया? For recycling plants, reduction of waste, does it come in their internal functioning or is it their external environment impact? सवाल समझ में आया? At least I hope you have an answer to it in your mind. I'm fine if you don't say it out loud. Okay? At least I hope you have an answer into your mind, or if not, at least I hope you are a little confused or thinking about it. कि internal और external environment क्या होता है? सवाल समझ में आया? क्या सवाल है मेरा? What is the question? That reduction of waste through recycling plants, is it an internal environment to these plants or external environment? What the question? What is the main aim of these recycling plants? Profit making or waste reduction? Profit making. Because if the main aim was waste reduction, they would be there everywhere. If the main aim was waste reduction, they would be there everywhere. But they are only present at certain places. तब तो गाजीपुर का पहाड़ होता ही नहीं. गाजीपुर का पहाड़ तो होता ही नहीं. अगर मेन एम होता क्या? वेस्ट रिडक्शन. व्हाट इज देयर मेन एम? मेन एम इज प्रॉफिट मेकिंग. वेस्ट रिड्यूस हो रहा है वो अच्छी बात है, वो उनके बिजनेस की अच्छी बात है. ठीक है, दैट इज गुड. सो गवर्नमेंट शुड प्रमोट दोज फर्म्स विच आर रिड्यूसिंग, विच आर रिसाइकलिंग वेस्ट, बिकॉज दैट हैज अ पॉजिटिव एक्सटर्नैलिटी. लाइन ऑफ आर्ग्यूमेंट समझ में आएगा इस? ठीक है, एकदम क्लियर रखना है, एकदम बेसिक से एकदम क्लियर रीजनिंग रखनी है. क्लियर टिल हियर? चलिए. हाँ मैडम. हाउ इज इट? बाय यूजिंग दैट इनपुट. दोज आर इनपुट मटेरियल्स. उस इनपुट मटेरियल को यूज करके वेस्ट रिडक्शन हो रहा है, दैट इज समथिंग एल्स. दैट इज वो दे आर यूजिंग दोज इनपुट्स, उसको यूज करके वेस्ट रिडक्शन हो रहा है, दैट इज अ गुड थिंग. बट वो उसका मेन एम नहीं है. मेन एम इज प्रॉफिट मेकिंग. ठीक है,
ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का मेन एम विल बी प्रॉफिट जनरेशन थ्रू वेट रिडक्शन.
वेस्ट रिडक्शन नहीं. वेस्ट रिडक्शन उसका प्रॉफिट मेकिंग हो नहीं सकता. वेस्ट रिडक्शन उसका मेन एम नहीं हो सकता है, क्योंकि वेस्ट यूसेज, वेस्ट यूसेज, वेस्ट यूसेज और वेस्ट रिडक्शन अलग है. प्रॉफिट मेकिंग थ्रू वेस्ट यूसेज है मेन एम उनका, नॉट वेस्ट रिडक्शन. अंतर समझ में आया क्या? क्लियर है? देयर प्रॉफिट मेकिंग थ्रू वेस्ट यूसेज. वेस्ट रिड्यूस हो रहा है, दैट इज एन एक्सटर्नैलिटी. क्लियर है? एनीबॉडी एल्स गाइस? प्लीज राइट दिस डाउन. फॉर एग्जांपल, रिसाइकलिंग. ये क्या हो रहा है भाई? रिसाइकलिंग प्लांट्स. रिसाइकलिंग प्लांट्स. फॉर एग्जाम्पल रिसाइकलिंग प्लांट्स. मेन एम क्या है इनका? करेक्ट, प्रॉफिट मेकिंग थ्रू वेस्ट यूसेज. प्रॉफिट मेकिंग थ्रू वेस्ट यूसेज। मेन एम क्या है? प्रॉफिट मेकिंग थ्रू वेस्ट यूसेज। कैन यू प्लीज अगेन? प्रॉफिट मेकिंग थ्रू वेस्ट यूसेज। प्रॉफिट मेकिंग थ्रू वेस्ट यूसेज एंड एक्सटर्नैलिटी क्या है? वेस्ट रिडक्शन। ठीक है, एक्सटर्नैलिटी क्या है? वेस्ट रिडक्शन। अमृता, पॉजिटिव एक्सटर्नैलिटीज आर दोज जहां पे जो एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट पे इंपैक्ट है दैट इज पॉजिटिव। एनवायरनमेंट पे इम्पैक्ट पॉजिटिव भी हो सकता है, नेगेटिव भी हो सकता है। सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर स्टूडेंट्स आर ब्लॉकिंग द रोड्स दैट इज अ नेगेटिव एक्सटर्नैलिटी, बट इफ the students are going outside and becoming better citizens, I doubt which, but if they are going out and they are becoming better citizens, that is a positive externality. Clear? चलिए, यहां तक clear है guys? So this needs to be increased, promoted or reduced? Please write down, this needs to be promoted. This needs to be promoted. This needs to be promoted. Positive externalities need to be promoted. हाँ जी. To reduce the waste. होना चाहिए. कर लो भाई. Sorry? Profit is not bad. Profit making is not bad. Just because a firm has a intention of profit making does not make that firm bad. वो प्रॉफिट कैसे आ रहा है दैट डिफाइंस वेदर दैट प्रॉफिट इज बैड और गुड। अगर कनपट्टी पे बंदूक रख के ले रहा है तो बैड है, बट अगर लेजिटिमेट वेज के थ्रू है तो इट इज अ गुड। ठीक है, यहां तक क्लियर है गाइस? एक्सटर्नैलिटीज आर क्लियर? एकता, दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन व्हाट इज दिस लीडिंग। सो फॉर एग्जांपल गाइस, गुड क्वेश्चन। Government also gives some freebies, whether they are positive externalities or negative externalities. Depends. जैसे electricity subsidy, is it a positive or negative? Negative. Electricity subsidy is negative. How? Because it is impacting the water table. वो ट्यूबवेल चला के छोड़ देते हैं, the ground water depletion होता है उससे। ठीक है, audible here? चलो, that depends on which type of subsidy or a freebie we are talking about. Now, next is provision of public goods. Please write down, how do we define public goods? Ekta, I hope clear है? All right, Ekta. Guys, I hope online में सबके doubts clear हैं अभी तक, किसी का बचा नहीं है, बस एक शायद कुणाल का बचा है, वो लंबा वाला। Sorted guys? चलो, public goods, please write down the characteristics. ये आपसे डायरेक्टली पूछ सकता है, ठीक है? This can be directly asked in your prelims, ठीक है? Public goods, how do we define public goods? Okay, how do we define public goods? Please write down. Two simultaneous characteristics. Okay, there should be two simultaneous characteristics. Non-rivalry in consumption and non-excludability and non-excludability बी के बाद आई होगा non-excludability non-excludability. Let's try to understand what do we mean by this non-rivalry in consumption and non-excludability. Non-rivalry in consumption means more consumption by one does not leave less for the other. Let's try to understand what is this. Non-rivalry in consumption. Let's try to understand what is this non-rivalry in consumption. Let's try to understand what is this non-rivalry in consumption. Anybody still writing, guys? All right, एकता इधर हो गया guys? चलो, now see, non-rivalry in consumption. So for example, क्या लिखा है? That more consumption by one does not leave less for the other. For example, मान लीजिए आप और आपके छोटे भाई, you and your younger brother go to Domino's. Why? To have pizza. And when that pizza comes, you have ordered cheese burst, medium pizza, very delicious pizza. Bun pizza you ordered. And when that pizza comes, what does your brother do, younger brother? वो हैवान की तरह उस पे कूद पड़ता है. He just starts hogging the pizza. So tell me this one thing. Stop looking at me like that. So tell me this one thing. More consumption of that pizza by your younger brother, does it leave less, same for you? Yes. So is there rivalry in consumption or non-rivalry? Rivalry. There is rivalry in consumption. यहाँ तक clear है? Again, let's assume a second example. For example, let's suppose your parents bought you and your younger brother bicycles. Now, both of you were excited that my cycle chalayega. I'll ride this bicycle. Both of you took it out on the road, and both of you are riding, you are encircling your house in some or the other path. After 2 rounds, your knees start hurting. अरे हमारी उम्र हो रही है. After 2 rounds, you're like, और ना हो पाया. But your younger brother, very young, मैं चलाएगा. Does more consumption of that road by your younger brother leave less for you? Now when I say consumption, बैठ कर road नहीं खा रहा है. Does more consumption of that road leave less for you or same for you? Same for you. So is there rivalry in consumption or non-rivalry? Non-rivalry. Again, for example, metro. When you travel from metro, when you get down at your station, what do? यहाँ पे मैं खड़ा था, my station has come. आरी निकाली, this was my place. Do you do like that? No. So, does more usage by you leave less for the other person or same for the other person? Same. So, in metro, is there rivalry of consumption or non-rivalry in consumption? Non-rivalry in consumption. Clear? I hope this is clear. Defense. So, for example, if somebody, and this is, I'm talking about now non-excludability. What is non-excludability? पहले सुन लीजिए, we'll write it. Non-excludability means nobody can be denied the usage of that service if they have not made the user charges. If they have not paid user charges, they can be denied usage of that service. ठीक है? Non-excludability means that nobody can be excluded from the use of those services. जैसे if it is a public road, whether you have paid taxes or not, anybody can use. ठीक है? Whether you have paid taxes or not, anybody can use those public roads. Clear हुआ? Defense. Ambani pays more taxes than each one of us combined. So is he more protected? Missile आएगी, ए ज्यादा टैक्स देता है, वहां जाओ, ससुर ज्यादा टैक्स नहीं देता, पप. Are they more protected than us? No. Got it till here, guys? So that is non-excludability. Clear till here, guys? So those types of goods in which satisfy both the conditions, non-rivalry as well as non-excludability, such are called as public goods. जैसे defense. ठीक है, जैसे defense. Got it till here? Let's just write this down, and then there is a trick in this. Okay, then we'll understand that trick. Chalo. More consumption by one leaves less for the other. For example, please write down. यहाँ पे. For example, no Meenu, that cannot be traffic jams, and if the metro is very congested, that cannot be called as rivalry in consumption, because just because there is congestion does not mean after they are done with their consumption, lesser of that good will be available for you. Okay. So after the congestion has been done, it does not mean less of that railway will be available for you. It will be the same that was available to them, that will be available to you after they have consumed. Okay, Minu? I hope it is clear.
Sir, I think each is always dealing, it should be not limited resource. That should not be limited resource. Because limited हो जाएगी तो then there will be a rivalry and consumption will be.
वो नॉन राइवलरस में इम्प्लिसिटली कवर्ड हो जाएगा. मतलब अगर सप्लाई लिमिटेड है तो रुक जा पहले इसको लिख ले, नहीं रुक जा, पहले लिख ले इसको लिख ले. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, टाइम भी है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल pizza is a rivalrous good. For example, यहाँ पे लिखना. Okay, under the rivalry in consumption. Okay, for example, pizza is a rivalrous good. For example, pizza is a rivalrous goods. For example, pizza is a rivalrous good. उसे के नीचे लिखिए. Service roads are rivalrous or non-rivalrous? Non-rivalrous. Service roads are non-rivalrous. Comma. Highways with no tolls. Why have I written specifically no tolls? सवाल समझ में आया? Why have I written specifically no tolls? Because if there is a toll, you can be excluded. Therefore, highway with tolls, is it a public good? No. Highway with tolls is not a public good. Metro, is it a public good? No. सवाल समझ में आया? Metro, is it a public good? सवाल समझ में आया? Again, if it is being taught in your prelims, it is not a public good. If it is being taught in your mains, जो लिखना है लिख दो. Public good क्या प्रभु का गुड है ये. मेंस में जो बकवास लिखनी है लिख सकते हो. But technically in prelims, is metro a public good? No. Why? Because you can be excluded from its usage if you do not pay the user charge. अगर आप टिकट नहीं लेंगे, you can be excluded. So it does not fulfill the non-excludability criteria. Such type of goods are called as club goods, जिसमें सिर्फ non-rivalry होती है, but they are excludable, जैसे highway with tolls. समझ में आया? इसको लिखते हैं. We will write this down. अब इसमें लिख लो जरा non-excludability में. Non-excludability के कुछ एग्जांपल्स लिख लीजिए प्लीज. Non-excludability. Under this non-excludability, under this, the users cannot be denied. The users cannot be denied. एकता आते हैं, परेशान मत हो. The users cannot be denied. Its usage due to non-payment, due to non-payment of user charges, due to non-payment of user charges, due to non-payment of user charges, due to non-payment of user charges. For example, defense. For example, defense. In bracket write down, Ambani isn't more protected, Ambani isn't more protected, Ambani isn't more protected than the street beggar from the army, from the defense services. From the street beggar is not more protected compared to the street beggar, थोड़ा sentence देख लीजिए, is not more protected compared to the street beggar from defense services or from army services. From defense services. Clear till here guys? चलो अब उसी के नीचे एक साइड में लिख दो. So who has to provision such type of goods? Government has to provision. Okay, government has to provision these public goods. Got it till here? Now next लिखो. Common to both लिख दीजिए, नीचे लिख दीजिए इसके. Please write down. इससे common to both लिख दीजिए. Notably. Notably. हाँ इसी का एग्जाम्पल, किसका एग्जाम्पल इसी का? डिफेंस सर्विसेज. डिफेंस सर्विसेज इसी में लिख दीजिए. कॉमन टू बोथ. प्लीज राइट डाउन. नोटेबली items such as items such as items such as metro, comma, highway on tolls, metro, comma, highway on tolls, oh sorry, highway with tolls, highway with tolls, highway with highway with tolls, etc. cannot be technically considered as cannot be technically considered as cannot be technically considered as public goods. Cannot be technically considered as public goods because people can be excluded. People can be excluded from their usage. People can be excluded from their usage. People can be excluded from their usage. यहाँ तक ठीक है. Next line write down. Such type of goods are called as such type of goods are called as club goods which satisfy. Such type of goods are called as club goods which satisfy only one criteria. Only one criteria, that is non-rivalry. That is non-rivalry in consumption, comma, but they are not non-excludable. But they are not non-excludable. But they are not non-excludable. ठीक है guys? This is how they can make questions. This topic you guys often leave thinking कि भैया पता नहीं काम का है कि नहीं है, but इससे आपके मेंस में भी क्वेश्चन फंस सकते हैं. They can ask this question in your mains also. They'll ask the question with respect to what is the role of state. in today's society. And they can also ask these questions definitely in the mains. Okay, they can ask you to categorize which are public goods and which are club goods. Okay, these types of goods questions can come. By tonight, I will also share a question sheet. Okay, by tonight, I'll also share a question sheet. उसमें उसको आप लोग you can start solving and जो भी doubts हैं आप लोग पूछ सकते हो. Street lights would be public good. Yes, Ravi. Because again, non-rivalry in consumption and non-excludability. Okay, as long as these two being are met, both of them will be called as public goods. यहाँ तक clear है guys? चलो. Just last thing we need to discuss. If you बोलो. क्लब में आएगा. इट इज अज्यूम्ड कि जितना चाहिए ले सकते हो. उसमें तो अजम्पशन है ना कि जितना चाहिए ले सकते हो. अजम्पशन है कि बहुत सारा स्टॉक रखा हुआ है. ठीक है. नाउ गाइस, इफ यू वुड रिमेंबर, टू थिंग्स वी हैड टू स्टडी. वन वाज द ग्रेट डिप्रेशन को कैसे डील किया, अदर वाज डायमंड वाटर पैराडॉक्स. याद है? चलिए, प्लीज गिव द हेडिंग अंडरस्टैंडिंग डायमंड वाटर पैराडॉक्स. फ्रीबीज, एक तो इट डिपेंड्स कि किस टाइप की फ्रीबी है. पब्लिक हेल्थ सेंटर्स कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज पब्लिक गुड. व्हाई? बिकॉज वहां पे जाने के लिए पैसा नहीं लगता है, सब फ्री में है. बट हाँ, सर्विसेज बुरी हैं, दैट इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग टू बी डिस्कस्ड. डायमंड वाटर पैराडॉक्स. ओके, प्लीज गिव अ हेडिंग डायमंड वाटर पैराडॉक्स. महिला की फ्रीबीज कौन सी वाली? हाँ, फ्री बस ट्रैवल. हाँ, उसमें unless you don't identify as a woman, if you identify as a woman, you can go and take महिला वाली freebies. ऐसा मत करना कि अब इतनी दाढ़ी लेके बोलो पैसा ले. Who are you? Woman. हैं? अबे आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं बे, जाने दो, कहीं और ले जाएगा, वो ससुराल ले जाएगा. ठीक है, ऐसा मत करना. चलो, नाउ सी डायमंड वाटर पैराडॉक्स. प्लीज राइट डाउन दिस पैराडॉक्स. आई होप गाइस पैराडॉक्स रिमेंबर, याद है आप लोग को? पैराडॉक्स क्या है कि भैया वाटर इज एसेंशियल फॉर लाइफ, सस्टेनिंग लाइफ, बट स्टिल व्हाट इज मोर कॉस्टली? डायमंड. व्हाट इट हियर? ये पैराडॉक्स है. ऐसा क्यों है ये समझना है. आई नो मोस्ट ऑफ यू विल से कि भैया इट इज ड्यू टू डिमांड एंड सप्लाई. ठीक है, बट दैट इज नॉट द रीजन. प्लीज जल्दी से लिख लीजिए डायमंड वाटर पैराडॉक्स. दिस refers to the fact that diamond is more costly. That diamond is more costly than water, even though it is the water, that is more essential for sustaining life. Even though it is more essential for sustaining life. Even though it is more essential for sustaining life. Even though it is more essential for sustaining life. क्वेश्चन क्लियर है गाइस? अब देखो, ये कौन है बताओ? ये है आप लोग. अब देखो, नाउ लेट्स टेक टू केसेस. वन, यू आर इन योर रूम, अदर यू आर इन अ डेजर्ट. घर से निकलते ही कुछ दूर चलते ही मिल गया कौन? मैं. एंड आई गेव यू टू ऑप्शंस कि भैया ये बताओ, व्हाट विल यू हैव? will you have 1 kg, kg लिख रहा है मैं वाटर, और 1 kg डायमंड? बताओ लालची लोगों क्या लोगे? 1 kg डायमंड. वेरी वेरी गुड. सिमिलरली डेजर्ट में भी कुछ दूर चलते ही मिल गया कौन? मैं आपको स्टॉक नहीं कर रहा हूं, एग्जाम्पल है, ठीक है. नाउ सिमिलरली वाटर एंड डायमंड. एक मिनट. फ्यू विल चूज वाटर, बट आई नो लालची लोग कौन कौन है? वेरी गुड. सो मैं मर जाएगा लेकिन मैं छाती पे हीरा लेकर मरेगा. वेरी वेरी गुड, वेरी वेरी गुड गाइस, वेरी वेरी गुड. क्योंकि आपकी जान चली जाएगी, लेकिन आपकी जान नहीं है सदा के लिए, लेकिन हीरा है सदा के लिए. ठीक है, देते टाइम पता चलेगा. अब देखो, यूजुअली वाटर चूज करेंगे, यूजुअली डायमंड चूज नहीं करेंगे. अभी मैं आपसे, इफ आई आस्क यू व्हाट इज द रीजन, ओके, व्हाट इज द रीजन, यू विल से बिकॉज डेजर्ट में सप्लाई ऑफ वाटर इज लेस. सो ऑब्वियसली विल गो फॉर वाटर ना, कम ऑन, यही बोलोगे. नाउ सी, अरे ठीक है, चल इधर देख. देखो, व्हाट इज द रीजन दैट यू गेव? द रीजन दैट यू गेव वाज डिमांड एंड सप्लाई का गेम. गॉट इट क्लियर? अब देखो एक और एग्जांपल लो. ये बताओ कौन है? आप लोग. नाउ यू हैव टू वॉक 500 kilometers in a desert. पूछो क्यों? मुझे नहीं पता, आप लोग पागल हो. You have to walk 500 kilometers in a desert, and at every 1 kilometer you have water. You have the option of either taking water or diamond. Which means, no, listen to me. This is important. Which means supply is now infinite. Which means supply is practically infinite. ये समझ में आया? अब मुझे बताओ, फर्स्ट पे अपने मन में रखना, ये सारे क्वेश्चन में जो पूछता हूं ना, व्हाट डू यू थिंक, मुझे जानना नहीं है, मैं बस पूछ लेता हूं, अपने मन में रखा करो. ऑल दीज आर रिटोरिकल क्वेश्चंस, ठीक है. सो व्हाट डू यू थिंक? सर आई थिंक, नहीं जानना, मेरे को जानना ही नहीं, मेरे को मैं बता देगा. मतलब मैं ऐसे नहीं करेगा व्हाट डू यू थिंक, अच्छा गया नहीं बताऊंगा, ऐसा नहीं करेगा, मैं बता देगा. ठीक है. अब देखो, एट द फर्स्ट शॉप will you take water or diamond? Some of you will take water, some of you will take diamond. यहां तक क्लियर है? At the first, some of you will take water, some of you will take diamond. Clear? At the second shop, will you make the same choice or change? क्यों? सप्लाई तो इन्फिनिट है ना. सवाल समझ में आया? And after that, in the next shop, will you again change or will you keep the same? सवाल समझ में आया? यहां तक क्लियर है? सप्लाई तो अनलिमिटेड है. Supply is unlimited. This is the question. These are the two questions that we need to see. एक है, why did you choose what you chose? पहले पे वाटर लिया तो क्यों लिया? पहले पे डायमंड लिया. Then why did you take diamond? Whatever your choice was, why did you make that choice? Clear? And the other is, why did you change your choice? इसके नीचे लिखिए, मैं बैठ के क्या ड्राइंग कर रहा है इधर? लिख इसको, लिख जल्दी, लिख इसको। मैं बैठ के ड्राइंग कर रहा है क्या? हाँ, बनाओ बनाओ। ये बैठ के क्या कर रहा था? मैं क्या, हाँ बना, बढ़िया, वाह क्या ड्राइंग बनाई है, वाह वाह वाह। ये बना जल्दी, अरे दोनों बनाना है, लिखना है दोनों पे, जल्दी लिख। मेरा थोपड़ा बना, जल्दी जल्दी जल्दी। फिर यहां से भी बोलेगा ना, कहां जाऊं मैं, किसका? हाँ, सॉरी सॉरी सॉरी, मैं बता रहा, मैं भाग नहीं जाएगा, पहले जल्दी लिख तो इसको। मैं बता रहा, इसको जल्दी लिख पहले, इससे ज्यादा नहीं हो सकता। जल्दी लिखो भाई, गजब आइटम लोग हो, बैठ के प्रवचन सुन रहे थे। अगली बार से जो भी बोर्ड पे लिख रहा हूं बना देना चुपचाप। हमें लगा सिर्फ समझा रहे हैं, बट ड्राइंग हैज अ टेल। अबे पूछ जो है तू सब बना। रुक जा, लिखूंगा नहीं क्या? These two concepts were supposed to discuss opportunity cost and the law of diminishing marginal utility. Law of diminishing marginal utility and something called as the opportunity cost. Thank you, Anjum. Chalo, let's end the class here. We'll start from opportunity cost tomorrow. इसको बना लेना। Okay. कैसे घोंचों की जमात है? चलो, थैंक यू सो मच गाइस।
पानी सर नहीं कर सकता सर, नदी पहली है पानी है ना।
यस यस, डाउट्स। हाँ पूछे शोभना, पूछे। हाँ पूछो शोभा, डाउट्स पूछो। हाँ बोलो।
If government puts more money in the hands of the people, you said that they'll have this possibility.
नहीं, अभी क्लोज मत। शोभा डाउट्स पूछिए।
They have disposable income, but last time when Great Depression हुआ, people were trying to pull out their money from the banks. वो वाला option भी है, जो भी money
मैं बताता हूँ आगे बताता
नहीं है।
I hadn't said that to you. Please do not take
हूँ। मैंने सुना भी नहीं आपने क्या बोला। चिल करिए, चिल करिए, चिल करिए। कोरोना अप्रोच इन क्लासिकल इकोनॉमिक स्कूल ऑफ, एक मिनट, कोरोना अप्रोच, गाइस, शांति से निकल जाइए, बाहर बात कर लीजिए प्लीज। शांति से निकल जाइए, बाहर बात कर लीजिए, बाहर बात कर लीजिए। कोरोना अप्रोच इन क्लासिकल इकोनॉमिक। शोभा, क्लासिकल गाइस, अरे मेरे भाई तू सामने क्या मत आ रहा है, चुप। अरे तो आवाज तो आती है। Shobha, the classical economic thought talks about less government, and correct. The classical school of thought talks about less government, and with the less government, it essentially means deregulation. Okay, essentially means deregulation. Deregulation किस चीज का? Deregulation of laws. तो फार्म लॉज अगर आपको याद हो, फार्म लॉज में प्राइवेट सेक्टर को ज्यादा रोल दिया जा रहा था। क्यों? वो उनके अपने रीजन से, एग्रीकल्चर में हम लोग देख लेंगे उसको, बट दिया किसको जा रहा था? फार्म लॉज को। ठीक है, फार्म लॉज को ज्यादा रोल दिया जा रहा था। सिमिलरली जब हमने लेबर कोड्स दिया तो लेबर कोड में भी प्राइवेट सेक्टर को ज्यादा रोल दिया जा रहा था। ठीक है, तो शोभा ये क्लियर हुआ। क्लासिकल अप्रोच क्या थी? क्लासिकल अप्रोच मींस लेस स्टेट। एक मिनट कुणाल, फॉर रोड्स वी आर पेइंग टैक्सेस, सो विल इट बी काउंटेड इन नॉन एक्सक्लूडेबल। मीनू, भले ही आप टैक्स दे रहे हैं कि टैक्स नहीं दे रहे हैं, जो कॉमन रोड्स है वो हर कोई यूज कर सकता है। ठीक है, जो कॉमन रोड्स है वो हर कोई यूज कर सकता है, भले ही उसने टैक्स दिया कि नहीं, वो भिखारी भी यूज कर सकता है। Why exactly we mean by non excludable? Non excludable means उसको एक्सक्लूड नहीं किया जा सकता, भले ही उसने चार्ज दिया है कि नहीं। मेट्रो यूज करने से आपको रोका जा सकता है अगर आप फीस नहीं देंगे। हाईवे पे अगर आपने टोल नहीं भरा है तो उस हाईवे पे आपको रोका जा सकता है। ठीक है, कॉन्सेप्ट इज बेस्ड ऑन कंडीशंस, करेक्ट। यस मेनू, हाउ हाईवे विद टोल्स आर राइवलरस? They are not, they are non-rivalrous. Highway with tolls are non-rivalrous but excludable. What is the role of welfare government? Is it participation in economy? Yes, active participation, not merely participation, active participation in the economy. What is a neoliberal state? Neoliberal state की characteristics, चलो ठीक है, this will discuss in detail when we will talk about LPG reforms. Guys, online में और कुछ? सोशलिस्ट वर्सेस वेलफेयर दोनों सेम है भाई। अच्छा, नहीं, सोशलिस्ट और वेलफेयर, सोशलिस्ट स्टेट का ही तो टाइप है वेलफेयर स्टेट। सोशलिज्म एक फिलॉसफी है, सोशलिज्म एक फिलॉसफी है जिसके अंतर्गत जो स्टेट का जो फॉर्मेट होता है, दैट इज अ वेलफेयर स्टेट। क्लासेस कैन बी एक्सटेंडेड। ये मेरे पास अच्छा 10 से 15 मिनट खींच सकते हैं, चलो ठीक है, वो बाद में मैं बात कर लूंगा। डन है? अच्छा, एक मिनट बात करते हैं उस पर भी। और कुछ गाइस ऑनलाइन में और कोई डाउट है गाइस? नहीं, मैंने लिखवाया होगा शुभ्रांजलि, हाईवे विद टोल्स आर नॉन राइवलरस बट एक्सक्लूडेबल, दे आर एग्जांपल ऑफ क्लब गुड्स। What is a trade-off? Trade-off मतलब लेना देना है। LPG full form, liberalization, privatization, globalization. All right, मीनू, अमृता, आई होप आपका क्लियर है। और कुछ गाइस? All right, शुभ्रांजलि। All right, guys. Thank you so much, guys.